Hi everybody, Matt Lawton here, and this is the Astrological Winds channel. Going to take a look at the astrological weather report for the week of January 13th through 19th. And it's going to be three big things I want to talk about this week. A couple other smaller things starting right now on Monday. A huge full moon at 24 degrees Cancer, conjunct Mars retrograde. And then also later in the week, Venus conjunct Saturn, the annual conjunction of them, and that's in Pisces, and Mercury will be sextiling both of them. And then on Sunday, the sun goes into Aquarius. So those are the main three things I wanted to talk about this week. Just real quick, little info. The Astrological Winds channel is a free video blog I do on YouTube. It's a channel there. If you have an account and you like what you see, I'd really love you to become a follower. And don't forget to turn your notifications on so that you know when the blog is posted. Also, it was a podcast long before it was a YouTube channel. It's still available on all kinds of podcasts. Just look up Astrological Winds channel. That frees you from the video, and you can do it maybe at a more convenient time and you have a chance to listen to something, maybe when you're taking a walk or whatever, driving around. Chance to hear it there. I also post the link to the blog on Instagram. So there's an Astrological Winds channel page on Instagram. So please become a follower if you have an Instagram account. Sometimes I do put some extra information on that that's only on that. And then the place you can always find it is on my website. The blogs are embedded there, and I have actually usually a few months back. So you can refer back to ones in the past that if you need to look at the monthly or something from the past, they're available there. That's www.astrologicalwinds.com. No channel on that. And that also has all my professional services. I've been a professional astrologer for over 20 years after 7 years of training. We'd love to do your chart. Have all kinds of services, professional services for people who want to work on weekly, monthly stuff together. Also services for groups if they need a lecture, a class, something like that. And also students. I have podcast classes, looking to do live classes if we can find a few more. So all that stuff's available, the info on the website. Please check that out. Remember, this is a free service, and what I offer you and what I ask for in return is that you pass the link along to somebody else. Even if you've done that for me before, please find someone else that you can pass it on to and let them check it out too. I really appreciate that. And of course, if you need a reading, that helps me too. So, if you've been following the blog the last few weeks, and I know people kind of come and go, I've been talking about the Mars retrograde quite a bit. And I warned people in early December that we were in for quite a ride. The next few months, Mars is going to be retrograde until the 23rd. And I reiterated it very deeply in last week's blog. So you can even go back to that. There's been a lot of examples of it. And what I can't stress more of this is that most of the retrograde period being in Cancer, which is the weakest sign that Mars really can be in. And so really hard for Mars to act well, and then an opposition to Pluto pretty much during the whole period too, which just brings this, two of the most destructive forces together in energy, and change can come, and change can be destructive, and change can be powerful, and it's bringing in transformation. So once again, the things that we've ignored is what is being brought down, is what's being destroyed and brought down to ashes, and very important things that we've ignored that have reached an apex point now where the structure and form of them is literally falling apart or being destroyed. And this week again, the fires in Los Angeles, I mean, God bless all your souls out there, but this energy of Mars and Pluto is very fiery energy. Pluto is the god of the underworld, and many people think that's a very hot place to be. And Mars is known for the hot energy of the ego and the temper and that kind of thing. So you get these two together, and the element that they bring in is a lot of heat. And you can see the problem is, these two together feed our worst fears, and we become reactionaries to that. And we all agree right now that everybody seems to agree that the world needs to transform, right? But like we still seem to resist on all kinds of levels that transformation. And that's what this is happening. I mean, when transformation occurs in nature, it many times is a violent thing. Volcanoes create new land, right? It's a very, very violent process. Earthquakes shift the land around, a very violent process. Floods come and inundate a whole area, very violent process. Fires come into national forests, or now in this case, like getting where our cities have encroached into areas and the climate gets dry, and wow, they come these, this transformation of violent nature transformation, very elemental, very primal energy is this Mars Pluto energy. And so like, this is like, the thing is, we need to take these opportunities when these things are being torn down and create something new, something better out of the ashes of that. And believe me, these aren't only big events. I know, I work with clients all the time. I know that people in their personal lives are, watching things happen like that in their personal lives too, or things that have, just being like destroyed on them. And it's very difficult to go through this process of transformation. So the reason I bring that all up again is because this week starts off with this very, very intense full moon in Cancer. Okay. And so, as I've said before, a full moon is an opposition of the sun to the moon. So the moon in Cancer opposite the sun in Capricorn, there's a very, very force that's pulling in two different directions just in that energy alone. The moon in Cancer really wants emotional security, and the way it gets that is having its needs met. Right now, a lot of people aren't feeling like they're having their needs met. And we're talking about very basic needs with Cancer. We're talking about a cardinal sign that's like, hey, food, health care, and a warm place to stay in. Basic needs being threatened, right? And then Mars comes back into that sign of Cancer, which I've talked about a lot, where when it's not feeling those needs, that's the warrior archetype that's going to get very defensive then. It's going to circle the wagons. It's going to want to protect itself first. Very egotistical. Itself first. The first drive we all have, the drive to survive. That's what Mars is there to protect. Because if we don't do that, then we don't live, right? So that's like triggering that kind of energy. And then when it's in Cancer, as I said, it's so weak because it really, Mars does not like to take into account emotions. And right now, there's a lot of emotions going on. And Mars is feeling upset. And so when Mars feels upset in Cancer, it does one of two things. It either A, shuts down completely, becomes inactive, right? Or B, becomes super defensive. And all that warrior energy goes into protection and being super reactionary. On a larger scale, Mars in Cancer is all about feeding nationalism, about finding an enemy within the borders of a nation to blame all the problems on. Does that sound like the kind of stuff we're doing in the world right now, as nations, right? And so this can conflagrate this energy of conflict. Anybody who's at war personally with you, or any nations that are at war, this is just going to blow it up even more, because they're trying to think that they're protecting mine and the little bit of resource that they see shrinking away, and worry that they're not going to survive, they're not going to make it. So people get super, super protective. And like when Mars is in Cancer and is feeling good, it opens the circles up and it allows more people in. It wants to widen that energy. But right now, it's not feeling good, not with an opposition to Pluto going on too. So there's like, you're going to see people act out in this full moon, right? Full moon people always act out, and so you're going to see people act out on this energy, and there's going to probably be some pretty wild events this week that will continue, and we'll see it like with our leaders, we'll see it between nations, and we'll see it in our personal lives. Now, what makes this even more intense, you guys? Like, so what this means, right? Not only is Mars conjunct the moon, but that means it's also opposite the sun, right? So it's the annual opposition to the sun. So when you can actually go out and see this tonight in the sky, usually when in astrology, when there's a conjunction in astronomy, it's only by longitude. So like the moon can be up here on 1 degree and Mars down here, right? And they're conjunct still if they're on the same line of longitude. Remember longitude in school, the globe, right? The lines that are going down. I hope you paid attention, right? So what's happening with this conjunction and this opposition is the moon is going to do what we call an occultation to Mars. Literally, the moon is going to eclipse Mars tonight. It's going to not only be conjunct by longitude, but by latitude too. The moon will block Mars. The moon is an amplifier in astrology. It amplifies any energy. That's why when it's a full moon, it's shining the light on the sun and people act out. The sun is our ego and our being and ourself, and we really act out and we truly show. So like the crazy people really show their crazy side, right? We all have that crazy side. It's okay. But anyway, the point is the moon is an amplifier in astrology. When you have it eclipsing another planet, what do you think that's going to do to that planet? That is focusing that Mars intense Cancer energy like a laser beam. This is going to be a super, super intense conjunction and full moon. And people are going to have a really hard time not reacting to it. It's a really rare event, you guys. And I can tell you, the ancient astrologers, like I told you about a few other times when Mars goes retrograde, what they used to think about that. In some of the past few blogs, I've talked about that. Well, when there's an occultation, they're definitely like, this is a bad omen. There's going to be nations and leaders that fall. There are going to be people that suffer during this publicly together, large events of people suffering. And we can see, that this is the energy of a great, great, great conflict. And it's reaching apex point. So the same thing in your personal life. If you are in any situations where there's been a lot of conflict, this is a time when it's really going to get triggered. And especially if you're not getting what you need in the situation, this is like really where it's going to be like, whoa. And what's the sun in Capricorn saying? The sun in Capricorn saying to that moon in Cancer, now wait a minute, we've gone through this stuff before. We've survived. We have a bank of wisdom that's based on experience. And even in frugal times, conservative times, Cancer and Capricorn are very conservative signs, actually, that we know there's a way to survive. But the moon in Cancer triggered by this Mars is just not going to probably be able to hear this very well. It's not going to. It's going to get very protective. It's going to, a lot of stuff's kind of reach these critical climaxes, and so like, unfortunately, like I said, most people are going to just react to this energy. And even if you can control that yourself, you have to be very aware that people who have a proclivity towards violence, locations or situations that, can be violent or building towards that are most likely good. That's going to happen. And if you're in that zone, you can be very much affected by that energy. So, the anger is going to come to the surface on people here. There's a lot of anger buried in the Mars Pluto, and it's going to come up to the surface. The full moon is going to shine the light on all that anger, and a lot of people are going to feel really stormy. Now, remember too, on a personal level, Moon and Mars in Cancer, full moon, that can be a lot of personal issues with your family and your loved ones. Like a lot of domestic strife can come in. Family relationships, love relationships can be very tense during this. Even your friendships can be tested during this energy. It is very, very stormy energy. And there can be a lot of justice behind why you're feeling like you're angry and you're irritated and you want to blow up. But I can guarantee you that violence just begets more violence. Anger just begets more anger. You have to be really, really careful with this energy because it makes you want to act out impulsively. And you can really, do things that you end up hurting yourself, hurting the others around you, really losing your perspective. Like, even if something is an injustice, blowing it way out of proportion so that you can really, really lose your perspective, like I said. Now, two of the things that's interesting about this, the moon is in Cancer, so there's no ruler of this full moon. Cancer is ruled by the moon, so the moon itself is ruling this. So it's a very pure energy again. And that's one of the things that makes it super strong. And then the occultation really makes it super strong too. But there are two aspects that are going on during the full moon that I think can be helpful, or I know can be helpful. It's just, can we control ourselves enough and use this energy? The first one is almost an exact sextile to retrograde Uranus in Taurus, right? And so, really, to me, this shows that there are opportunities to change right now. Now, whatever this stuff brings down, it can bring we might see some new opportunities in there that we can push and try to like upgrade the system, bring some changes into the system. That's what Uranus wants to do. And so this says that we could actively work with this full moon energy, with this Mars Pluto energy of transformation and change, and try to actually create opportunities that, where the change is met and where, and, it's almost like, Uranus is like, you're like, okay, like kind of like hypnotized by this energy, and Uranus is coming along and it's grabbing us by the shoulders. It's like, wake up, snap out of it, snap out of the malaise, snap out of the creeping malaise. You can use this opportunity right now to spark something new and creative, and look for that with different new connections that you have or new information that comes in, that it feels very stimulating to your mind. That is where it's most likely going to come from. So that's one thing. And then there's going to be a trine. It's going to trine Neptune too. It's within 3 degrees. In fact, Mars is right on it, which I talked about in last week's vlog. And so once again, this is saying, once we get all this energy downloaded through us, take a step back for yourself. Find a quiet place. Think about what it all means. Think about how there might be opportunities to put your values in through this world of change. That's what I think it's saying. If you see the opportunity, which can come through intuition and insight with Uranus, then you might all of a sudden see a way where the things that you really value can be part of a greater change that's occurring, whether you want it to or not. It's a natural process, right? So can we find some inspiration? Can we use our imagination? Can we pull back and contemplate and take a look at the situation? Find it in our spiritual base, our value base, our creative base, what that can be, where that can actually help. Find some inspiration there and just kind of take a little space for yourself and take a look at it. So like I said, I really think what this full moon is saying is, listen, change is happening. It's happening right now. There's a great change happening. It's happening just in nature, in evolution, of which humans are a big part of. near the top of the pyramid. And can you use this opportunity to change things and get it more aligned to what you would like to see things like, right? And what's really interesting about this, it's a full moon cycle, so it'll be in effect for a month, but it's going to continue strong all week because the exact Sun Mars opposition is Wednesday, and the exact Sun sextile Neptune is actually on Friday. So this energy is going to be very, very potent all week long. And this is the way it ends with the Sun sextile Neptune, which says, can we use our imagination, our inspiration, the things we truly value, the things we truly believe in, our spiritual compasses, our creative self? Can we take this energy and use this as an opportunity to bring those things into the world and start to steer our world and this world in another direction that can get us out of this cycle of like destructive energy. I really like the way it ends. So look to where 24 degrees Cancer Capricorn is in your chart. It's going to be across two houses, right? And that's the axis that it will be affecting you most. So if it's in your 4th and 10th houses, that means your home and career is where there's a lot of the stress going on, so and so on and so on. Now, Tuesday, we have a really sweet square, actually. Venus square Jupiter. It's probably the nicest square there is out there. Um, and that's really sweet to get right after the full moon. It's like actually getting some relief. It's like somebody putting a band-aid on a wound, right? Like, bandaging up a wound. Because it's about wanting to hang out with our loved ones and just like slow down, enjoy life, smell the roses, pick the roses, put them in a vase, have a nice cup of tea with them, have a nice meal with your friends, enjoy life, slow down. And so that's actually the biggest issue with this square is we have a tendency to waste time, waste resources, waste money. Not a great day to go shopping because you'll probably impulsively spend money on things that you don't really need. And it may be just to kind of, put at ease some of the emotional stuff we're going through, like almost as a crutch, so to speak. And a time when we can, like, don't overcommit yourself either, because that's another thing we have a tendency to do with this energy. Is, oh, yeah, I can do that for you. I can do, all of a sudden realize too much. So, like, but a day to chill out and relax and be with your friends. Now, Wednesday is the day of the exact Sun Mars opposition, which is all part of that full moon, but it will be a day where conflict, the energy of conflict, is going to be at an apex point. Really good day to work alone, really good day to do something physical. But still don't be impulsive because you'll end up with, on the ground with an injury or something. If you're, so you need, but this is a day where just be really careful with, the violent people, places, situation stuff, because it can really blow up on Wednesday. Thursday, there's a bumpy Mercury quincunx Jupiter, which, you know, it stimulates the mind to be very ambitious. It gives a wide vision. It gives a very tolerant vision, but it overlooks a lot of the details. Really, if there's a word that fits Mercury, quincunx, Jupiter, it's sloppy. It's like having a very sloppy approach to things, sloppy appearance, sloppy thinking, sloppy planning, just like really not disciplined. So really got to be careful with that. It can be very, very careless energy. And like I said, do have a good vision. Can we actually see into the future relatively well? But what we can do in this a lot of times too, especially with Jupiter, is like we're so sloppy that we're not actually meeting our own standards of behavior. And from the outside, we look like what? Hypocrites, because we're not even, and then we're like, being a blowhard about it, Mercury, Jupiter, trying to push that stuff on others, and it's pretty obvious to others that you're not living up to it yourself, or that your own approach can use some tightening up. So that's Thursday. Then Friday, like I said, that's the exact Sun sextile Neptune day, and that will be the last of the full moon aspects that perfects. And I really think it will show us places where we have opportunity to bring in our values and our belief systems and ideals into the world, like through some of these changes that are going on. Now, Saturday and Sunday, another really big thing. Venus conjunct Saturn, the annual conjunction of the two. It's in Pisces this year, and both of them getting a sextile to that Mercury at the same time. So this is over the weekend. And so Venus conjunct Saturn is all about relationships mainly, and it's really giving a sober assessment to all our relationships. And so what happens is this: we get really real. We cut out the fat, we cut out the fantasy. We get real about all our relationships, and we can see them for what they realistically are. What this does in many cases is there can be separations from certain people that we realize, hey, this just does not work for me, this relationship. And I just need to, get, the energy of this relationship out of my life and move forward with it. Or it can bring relationships down to a very realistic level. The ones that you recognize as stable and sober are those who are reliable. Those are the ones that are going to be around for a long time, that you can build a strong, solid, grounded relationship with. Now, like I said, it can be depressing because, sometimes it's our loved ones and people who we're emotionally attached to that we're doing this sober analysis about, and realizing they're never going to be able to meet our needs, and that they're never going to be reliable, and that we're always going to have an unstable relationship with them. And we may have to make that decision that, we can't move on. I mean, sometimes too, this may be like, hey, the people may agree we need to get some advice or counseling in our relationships, but like, it's really about trying to find the ones that we believe are sober and stable, and we're trying to base that on our practical needs being met with them, and like, not allowing emotional content to overwhelm us and throw it and turn it into drama. So we want it to be sober and objective and detached. We want an energy of working together to resolve our problems, to both parties being like, yes, I'm not going to get so emotionally involved that I'm going to steer this into a world of drama and stuff, because that Venus Saturn is going to be like, you're someone I need to separate from then. If you can't sit here and be objective and agree we have some issues we need to work on, and we can come up with agreements that work for both of us, then, that is a separation. But if you find the person that can do that, well, then you found your gem, because that's the person that you can have a stable long term. And it really does value a lot of partnership energy, business partnerships, marriages, that kind of, like, it takes it to that point, but like, this can be really constructive when you have that right attitude. You can have a very constructive, and it can teach you a lot about yourself in the long term too. Now, with money, we have to be careful too with this. This is a time when we want to be conservative with money. We don't want to be out there spending a lot of money. It's a time where it's saying, hey, be careful, be careful with it. Guard your money. With Mercury sextiling both of them, that is just wonderful, because not only are we doing this assessment in ourselves, we're communicating it to others, and we're communicating it well. We are articulating how we feel very well without putting others off. In other words, we can talk about our emotions and exactly how we're feeling and remain, I don't want to say stoic, but once again, objective, not get to a point where it's really dramatic, and be like, hey, this is where I'm at. And not have the other person feel defensive. In fact, if anything, most of the time it will rally them to wanting to resolve the problems in the relationship and come up with a working agreement and come up with constructive ways to deal with things. So this is really nice, Mercury and Venus, that you're going to be able to listen and hear each other well, and speak and articulate each other well, and even come up with creative intellectual solutions to where you do need to create, maybe there are some things that still need to be straightened out before, that stability kicks in, or that, that commitment kicks in. But this gives us the opportunity to do that, and to do it in a way where, like I said, it's not so heavy, but it's still serious and objective and practical and concerned. And then on Sunday, the last thing is the sun is going into Aquarius. So we've reached the middle of the winter in the northern hemisphere, the middle of the summer in the southern hemisphere. And this is the sign of the sun's detriment. And that's because this is when the sun, this is the sign the sun is most supposedly least concerned with the self and is more concerned with group standards. So the self is actually acting towards the standards of a group, which can be bad for it at times. That's why it's in detriment. There's times when that is not the best thing for the self to be doing, that to really find your true inner self, that creative spark, the side that Leo represents in this axis. If you go along too much with the group, you can intellectualize that yourself right out of yourself. So that's why it can be a little bit in detriment there. But what's great about Sun in Aquarius, seeking out new ideas, new solutions. Well, don't we need that right now with all this stuff going on, right? And then finding people who have similar standards and group and goals and stuff and causes. And really, Aquarius is the sign of the subculture too, because subgroups form around these issues. But that's why they're detriment too, because that's where people can really lose themselves and do things for subgroups, like, say a terrorist drop a bomb on themselves and go blow themselves up for some subgroup that they believe in. Like, that's a detriment to your individual life, your Leo side, blowing yourself up, right? But you go into the Aquarians, I'm doing this for the group, I'm fighting for injustice, and blah, 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 okay, but, did you, like, you're actually giving up your number one instinct to do that, so that's, I don't know if that's the wisest choice, and, the sun in detriment in Aquarius would definitely say it's not, so, but this is having a free spirit, and wanting to have freedom and giving people freedom too. It's a very social sign, Aquarius. It's an air sign. And it's all about connecting with people who have those same intellectual ideas as you. And then we all take that stuff home, and then we inject it into our own value system. It's like getting a software update, right? And then, wow, then we adopt it in there and we become so strong about the idealism of that. And we become so stubborn, and no one can argue with an Aquarius. They're always right. That, right? No, and so, like, that's part of the fun part of Aquarius, is wanting to connect with other people in their subgroups and share ideas. You can see how that happens. I'm sure it happens to you in your subgroups. You get in there, the brain fires off, and it's blah, 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 and we're talking about our higher stuff, like we're high level, blah 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 blah. So, also a really good time to use science and technology, Aquarius. Get in and it's about fighting. Aquarius is definitely about fighting for social justice and equality, however we define that. And so we are very loyal to those groups that we feel will meet our personal needs on those levels, and so, like, and at times we can be very insensitive to anyone who's outside that group, and very, very stubborn, but we definitely will support those who we feel are not getting a fair deal, the victims of society, in whatever way we define that. And believe me, there's an infinite ways both sides of a political spectrum can believe that they're standing up for the victims of society. It's really just the way you look at things, So that's what we got going on for this week. An awful lot of change going on. I mean, guys, like I've been saying this, if you missed the last few blogs about the Mars retrograde, all the way to February 23rd, then it'll be in shadow and in Cancer for a couple months after that even. So we've got a long period of really this first half of this year. The world is going through and it's setting up, if you didn't see the annual blog yet, it's setting up all that stuff I talk about in the annual blog last week, the extra blog I did about the 3 outer planets changing signs and the aspects they have to one another. It's going to feed that stuff. These first few months of this year are what's going to feed the birthing of a new age and a new time and a new generation for the next 10, 20 years. And so you do want to see that annual blog too. I highly recommend you go back to the website. All right, this is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. I really want to do your chart if you haven't had it done yet by a professional. And if you haven't, you should, because getting a computer printout or having a friend or yourself read a book is not the same. It's like going to a court case without a lawyer, and thinking that you can look something up. There's a big difference. So you have that chart with you your whole life. And there's so much magic in there to unfold for you to bring you self-fulfillment and self-empowerment. I'd really like to help you do that. So when you're ready for it, there's my contact, Matt, MATTHUE823@gmail.com, or better yet, go to my website, www.astrologicalwinds.com. I have a big menu there, all kinds of readings. I was schooled for 7 years, passed all kinds of tests, counseling, work, knowing how to work with clients. So I would really love to help you out. And of course, that helps me out too. Please pass the blog along to somebody else too. And remember, it's also available on podcasts. I really want you to become a follower. If you have a YouTube account or an Instagram account, please become a follower. And if you'd like to give a donation to the blog, which some people do, and I just love all you guys who do, any amount is not too small. If you found it's been helpful and you got an extra $5, there's my Venmo at Matthew-Lawton, Lauten, and there's my Cash App, $ Matthew Lawton. I actually do put out money every month to put the blog out, but I'd love to do it. I'd do it for myself, even if I wasn't doing it for you guys. So really, anybody who helps, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you for the kind comments. Please pass the blog along now, and I will see you all next week. And no, I didn't even look at next week. Oh, we have the annual Sun-Pluto conjunction next week, so we'll be talking about that for sure. That looks like it may be the biggest thing of the week. Yes, it is. So that'll be a big thing to talk about next week, the annual Sun-Pluto conjunction. So I hope to see you then. Don't forget to go back and check out that annual blog. I put it up last week, and last week has the other blog from last week, the weekly, has January's monthly blog in it too. So if you missed that stuff, take a look at it. We're in a sea of change right now, and it's boiling. There's a lot of things transforming, and we need to find the opportunities now while this transformation is taking place to get what we want, to steer things to the place where we want it to go, both in our lives and in society. And hopefully that's a unification in society. There's been a lot of division. Our whole history has been really about division. So, hopefully we see things that are no longer supporting us. It will rally us together. All right, I will see you all next week. Thanks so much.